let's begin our exploration. Yesterday, we were talking about the quality of presence and awareness. And this unconditional, effortless presence and awareness seems to be a new beginning. This is one of the greatest gifts of life. Krishnamurti once said that awareness is the silent and choiceless observation of what is. It's a very precise expression. Awareness is the silent and choiceless observation of what is. And today we are going to explore another gift of life, which expresses through this awareness, and that is observation or seeing. Yesterday we explored the gift of listening, and today we are going to go much deeper into another quality of this pure awareness, which is observation. So, how do we observe? How do we watch or see? Can we bring simple awareness to what and how we are looking or seeing? From what background are we seeing? Are we always seeing through a particular background? When I am meeting somebody, what is the quality of seeing? Am I looking through my past background, through my image about that person? And usually this happens in most of our relationships. We observe one another through that conditioned background. So, what happens in that process? Then we are we really observing that person or even myself? Or is it the image that mind has accumulated about oneself or the other that is observing? In other words, thought is observing through its own accumulation, through its own conditioned patterns. Then we remain in this old field. So, what is this quality of observation? Because this is not observation when we are reacting from our past knowledge about oneself or about the other. So, can I be aware of this fact when it is happening? And aware that I am not actually observing. I am reacting from my past background. And that is not observation. And in order to live life fully, to have a fresh new beginning, isn't it that one must observe? One must see clearly without any distortion. When we are walking, we are observing the trees, the rivers, or mountains, or the traffic. Unless we are caught up in our own thought patterns or stories. And in order to observe, mind must be free. Free from any bias, free from any prejudice. So, is it possible to observe without any background? This is our deep question. Or do we have to depend always on the past knowledge to observe? Of course, the past knowledge has its place to recognize something, to recognize oneself or the other. So that recognition based on the past has its place to navigate through life. But psychologically, deeply, to meet oneself from the essence, do we really need that knowledge? Can I observe nature? Can I observe a tree without any name? Name has a place, but if name is dominating my observation, then it becomes limited. Similarly, can I observe myself without any name? Can I observe others without the name? Which does not mean that I forget the name, but the name and all the judgments associated with the name is not dominating my observation. It is just there in the background when it is necessary to use it. But can I be aware how my background is influencing my meeting, my relationship, my observation? Just to be aware of that. That I cannot look fully if my observation is influenced by my past. Just to be aware of that. So usually we are observing through thinking process. When I am looking at you, perhaps I'm just thinking about you, and that is not looking. Similarly, when I am thinking about myself, which has its place, but is it possible to have moments when there is simply observation and not doing anything? Because thinking is a doing. and which has its place. But can there be moments when there is letting go of all doing, all efforts, and simply being in this state of observation, which means there is no reaction from the past background. And if any reaction is arising, being aware of those reactions. Reaction means judgments, positive or negative. Reaction means motive, desire to achieve something. So, is it possible to really let go of all this movement, this psychological movement of the me, and simply observe? But then the question might come, how can I let go of this psychological movement of the self, this whole background of the past, so that this pure observation can happen? Is it a necessary condition for pure observation? Or one can also observe this whole field of the past, this reactivity as it is. So it sounds paradoxical that in order to listen, in order to observe, the mind must be quiet. The old mind or the whole background must be quiet. But it can only be quiet through deep listening and observation. So it is a simultaneous process. It is not that first uh, you become quiet and then observe or listen, because then we will be waiting for the mind to be quiet. And that waiting is part of the process of thought. So perhaps as we are listening now, as we are observing now, as we are attentive now, in the same moment, the mind is also becoming quiet. So both are happening together. And also, it is important that, as we said yesterday, we are using the tool of language, which is limited. So, when we are talking about observation, it doesn't mean that it is separate from listening or awareness. Actually, all these gifts of life are interconnected. They are not separate. There are no boundary lines that here listening ends and observation begins. It is together. They are not separate. It is one energy that can be called pure presence or pure awareness. So let us not be uh, caught in the language, but listen beyond the words. These are different words trying to point out towards a state of being which is beyond conditioning. And that is here and now. It is not a state to be achieved in future. There is nothing to be achieved in future or in time. Whatever is now. Listening is now. Observation is now. Attention is now. Freedom is now. So, not to make a concept or an idea about any of these things. And this is what we are learning here, the art of deep listening and pure observation, which goes beyond the words, beyond the language, which means giving right place to it and being aware of its limits. So, this observation, can we say that this observation itself is freedom? Freedom from any sense of becoming, achieving something in the future. And Krishnamurti would put it that this observation is free from the observer. Observer means this whole psychological movement of the me or the self or the ego. So, ego is not in this observation. Ego is our whole background, the past. So, that is not dominating. And that is the freedom. And when the me is not dominating in our relationship, then what is the quality of our relationship? Is there a separation then? Any sense of psychological separation based upon like and dislike, judgments? Isn't this observation then an act of love, act of unconditional love, in which there is no seeking, there is no motive? When I am listening without any border, without any expectation, isn't this quality of listening a state of love? When I am looking, observing, without any border, without any becoming, observing myself or the other, isn't it a state of love? Because there is no domination of the ego mind in this listening and observation. And this is the new beginning. And each moment it is a new beginning. It's not that I began yesterday, that that is over. So this beginning is every moment. And which does not mean that we feel a sense of guilt when we see that my mind is again operating through these habits, patterns. The invitation is just to bring compassionate attention to this fact, what mind is doing, and not fall into this mechanical judgments about oneself. not to be harsh with oneself is very important. Because in this quest, it is a great trap that we may go into this sense of self guilt. Oh, I'm not able to be aware or listen or observe. So just let us be affectionately watchful of this movement of self judgment and let it go whenever it arises. Because this journey is not about achieving something, it is about being in this moment, being now, being open with our heart, with our mind. I also wanted to raise another question. We explored about this awareness, which has no borders, which has no limits. Yesterday, we did this brief experiment that can we say, pinpoint anything about which I am not aware of? In this moment, we cannot find about anything about which I am not aware. And this awareness is related to whatever is happening inside and outside. And whatever I am aware of is limited. I am aware of this body, it is limited and temporary. I am aware of anything outside, including nature, that is also going through transition. It's a cycle. Nothing about which I am aware of is permanent, it is temporary. Now we go inside. I am aware of my thoughts, my emotions, feelings. All are temporary. They come and go. And in a way, it is a good news that nothing stays forever. Our sorrows, our pleasures, our joys, nothing stays. Now, my question is there an awareness which is not related to anything else outside? Because it may happen that my mind might focus just on outside or inside, which is also part of outside, means uh, awareness of thought, emotions, that is also in a way off, which is outside. So what is inside and outside, there are no clear borders. So awareness of something, and whatever is that is limited, is temporary, and there is no problem about it. But the problem comes when an expectation comes to bring about a change in what is. When I start expecting from awareness to bring about something, then an inner conflict might come. And that is the moment that pure awareness is also lost. So, can I be aware of that also? And to let go of this conflict to change whatever I am aware of. So, change doesn't come through effort or even by expecting from awareness to bring the change. In this way, I may create a lot of heaviness for oneself. Why the society is not changing, why the climate is not changing, why the world is not changing, humanity is not changing, I am not changing. This, then I may get caught into a vicious circle projected by my mind. Then I have made an idea about awareness and expecting something miraculous to happen from that. So, can I let go of this idea about awareness and simply be? And can I also connect to a state of awareness, to a quality of awareness, which is not about something, just which is just beingness, which is not expecting anything. The expectation, the motive belongs to the field of the mind, of the thought. But this quality of awareness is essentially a state of freedom. And it is not about something, it is just in itself. Nothing can be added to it, nothing can be taken away from it. So, is it possible just to drop in that state, not as an achievement or a goal, but to just see the beauty of this awareness, which has nothing to do with outside or inside? It is just being. And perhaps that is the essence of life, the essence of your true being, which we have forgotten, which we have lost. So, this is a reminder to connect to that unconditional pure beingness.